What up, what up, what up, what up? It's your boy P. Skip. Welcome to the best half hour of your entire Tuesday. You know what time it is. It's time to get into his course. My squad with me, T-Mac.
Hola.
Chili Will.
Gracias, amigo.
Let's do this.
Listen, a great show. We got a lot to talk about. Romans chapter 13, verse 17 in the Amplified says this: render to all men their due. Pay taxes to whom taxes are due, revenue to whom revenue is due, respect to whom respect is due, and honor to whom honor is due. I read that because an amazing man, Paul Silas, a three-time NBA champion, a Hall of Famer, a longtime coach, president of the National Basketball Association, died at age 79. His daughter, Paula, told the New York Times that her father died Saturday of a cardiac arrest. Paul Silas began his career as a head coach with a 3-year stint leading the then San Diego Clippers, starting in 1980. After that, spending more than a decade as an assistant coach. He returned to head coaching and spent time with the Charlotte Hornets, the New Orleans Hornets, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and then back to the Charlotte Bobcats. So he has a pretty huge footprint in the NBA, not just as a player, but also as a coach and also in the executive offices and the very intricacies of the NBA. You know, and I'm sure you have, Tim, but I got to see him as a player. I'm not sure if you did, Tim, but I know you have, Will.
Yeah, I did, definitely.
I got to see him as a player. I got to see him as a coach, and now to see his son coaching is just amazing to see the legacy that he is leaving. My prayers are for the family. My prayers are for all the people he's touched. You know, the fact that it was a sudden death, and he was only 79 years old. It wasn't like he was an old man, but you know, you have to take care of yourself. And so we want to give him his kudos. We should have gave him his flowers before time. The Hall of Fame sort of gave him some of them, but
let me just check on this as a correction. I don't think he was a NBA. I don't think he was a Hall of Fame in the National Naismith Hall of Fame. I think he's a college Hall of Famer, and I could be mistaken, but I don't think he's in the Basketball Hall of Fame. He's in the College Basketball Hall of Fame
because he was a beast in college.
Yeah. So I think, because I don't think his numbers, because he was probably one of the best role players, or one of the top role players in history of the game, which means that his numbers probably wouldn't lead to him being in the Naismith Hall of Fame. But in college, he definitely was a beast. And I do know for sure that he is a member of the College Hall of Fame. But we can check that out. I could be wrong.
Yeah, we'll get our stat checker, and maybe next show we'll make sure we got that information correct.
Yeah.
Tim, what do you think of Mr. Silas?
I think Mr. Silas was great, exemplary, and he was a inductee into the College Hall of Fame back in 2017. So, Will, your hypothesis was correct. I thought he was great, man. Matter of fact, I didn't necessarily get a chance to see him play because his career kind of tailed off as I was, coming of age. But I do remember as a baseball, football, and basketball card collector, I had his card. And I remember, when he got into the coaching piece, it was kind of a phenomenon to me because a guy who I had the card of, who happened to be Black, also was a coach. So he always had a special place in my heart personally as being a guy that was a pioneer. He always was spoken of as a guy who had a calming demeanor. And as I've gotten older, understanding the different ebbs and flows and the different levels of diplomacy that one has to execute as you go in the different rooms, my respect for him grew more and more because he's been a part of the NBA for a very long time. And as you talked about, Pastor Skip, he's been at these varying executive leadership levels, and that just doesn't happen. We're still talking now about, the need to have more Black coaches and more GMs and in executive offices. And so he was doing this 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. This guy is really, one who really ought to have a hat tipped, to him. His untimely death is unfortunate, and it really is a sad, case. And my prayers also with, his family, his loved ones, and to that piece about it being suddenly, you don't get a chance to prepare. And, death is never something that, you welcome, hardly ever, but it makes it that much tougher when it's a sudden type of deal. But Paul Silas, the man, appears to me, not having ever met him, but viewing him from afar, as a class act, one
Amen.
who was able, you know what I mean?
Yes.
One who was able to get along, not just with the executive C-suite, but also the players. The players seem to appreciate him as a player's, coach, one who say, hey man, I respect you as a man. If you show improve, I ain't gonna sweat you. Now I'll come in and check you like daddy when I need to, but I respect the fact that you need some space to do your thing, and I ain't gonna crowd you on that. So him having the personality dexterity to be able to roll in those two divergent areas, both with the players themselves, as well as get down in the C-suite, that really makes him a remarkable man. And it's a loss, not just for the NBA in his passing, but quite frankly, a loss for humanity as well.
Amen. Amen, Tim. Paul Silas is one of those guys who I had a love-hate relationship with him. And Skip will back me on this.
Absolutely.
Them Boston Celtics teams that he used to play for used to always beat the Bucks. They used to always put us out the championship. The Bucks could never go to those championships because back then you had to go through Philadelphia and Boston. And we always would get taken out by Boston. The John Havlicek, Dave Cowens, JoJo White, all of them cats used to get us every year. And Paul Silas was that thorn in the side who came in off the bench, who cleaned up the boards. I'm talking about this man lived on the glass. He hit clutch shots. He was a defender, lockdown defender. And he was known back then for a guy who you did not want to pick a fight with. He was a tough dude. He was a man's man. And even though right now, I look back on it and I respect all that, but at that time, what I wanted to happen, he was a big part of not allowing it to happen. But outside of that, his persona, the way he carried himself, his hoop game in general, he had the kind of game that you had to respect because he played his role. He came in off that bench. And when he came in, he meant business. And whatever time he was on the court, he was just a professional at what his job was. And me as, us as basketball players, we respect that. And to get your son into it very young, hired his son on as a coach, mentored him, showed him the way, provided guidance, and then for your son to actually join the family business, which was the NBA, and become a coach, to me, that's the type of legacy that I love to see within our culture, within our race, and with our people. One of the things that I've said over and over, one of the problems we got is family planning as a people, and we don't really understand how to get the next generation prepared. What's the word I'm looking for, Tim? I know you know all the words when you're trying to prepare the next person. What is that called?
Succession planning.
Succession planning. I knew my man was gonna let me down. Succession planning. Those are two areas that we have problems with as a people and as a community. And I can say that from what I've seen and what I know about Paul Silas, he kind of did outstanding and excellent in both of those areas. So, thank you for being that example. Thank you for carrying yourself and walking in the light. And thank you for all of the times that you entertained. Even though you wasn't doing what I wanted you to do, I was there watching on the edge of my seats, and I was being thoroughly entertained. So I have nothing but gratitude for Paul Silas, and I wish he's a person that I wish I would have had the pleasure of actually meeting and shaking his hands, because he's that great of an individual in my eyes. So may he rest in peace, and to his family and friends, you know, my condolences. And he's somebody who the NBA should figure out how to do something across the NBA for him, not to the same level as Bill Russell.
Yeah.
But he walked in the same path as Bill Russell, as a player, as a coach, and as a champion. I think that should be acknowledged league-wide.
Yeah, you know, we'll move on. He also opened the door for a lot more Black coaches in the league as well. Between him and Bernie Bickerstaff,
Lenny Wilkins.
But as far as having their sons be head coaches,
oh yes,
after they've been head coaches, you know, those two have done it and done it well. But let's keep it moving. There's a lot to talk about. Luke chapter 14, verses 28 through 30 in Amplified says this: "For which one of you, when he wants to build a watchtower or a house for his guards, does not first sit down and calculate the cost to see if he has enough to finish it? Otherwise, when he has laid a foundation and is unable to finish the building, all who see it will begin to ridicule him. Saying this, man began to build and was not able to finish." I read that because the news, the hot topic all over the place is the fact that Brittney Griner has been released to come home. I'm happy for Brittney Griner. I'm excited at the fact that she is now in the United States, that she's no longer held longer than she should have been for something as small as that. But I want to read this. President Biden announced on Thursday that the U.S. has secured Griner's release. In exchange, the administration offered Russia the release of the notorious arms dealer, Victor Bout, who had been serving 25-year sentence on charges that he conspired to sell tens of millions of dollars of weapons that the United States, that officials for the United States were to use against, or others were to use against the American. Griner's swap reveals a dilemma that the U.S. forces is freely detaining. A Taliban drug dealer convicted in a vast heroin trafficking conspiracy, a Russian pilot imprisoned for a scheme to distribute cocaine across the world, and again, the merchant of death, the man that they released, Victor Bout. I said that, all of that to say this. We don't know what this release is going to do for us later, because he's not going to go back and be a pure citizen. He's not going to go back to a 9-to-5. He's not going to go back and begin to, you know, start a cleaning business. He's going back to do what he does. And Russia got him out and wanted him out because of what he does. How do we, again, counting up the cost, do we really think that releasing her was worth, because Biden, you may be done. You may only have a 4-year term, and now somebody else has got to deal with the release that you did for Brittney Griner. And again, I'm glad that Brittney is released, but was this worth it on that level? Because again, the man is known as the merchant of death. And we just put him out there for him to be able to do what he's done, what he's been doing again and again. And he's probably extremely mad at America. Extremely mad at America. So, you know, what do you guys think? I mean, do you think it was worth it, or do you think, you know, and here's my thing. It would be different if she was made, and I'm not saying that I'm devaluing who she is, but she's a basketball player, not somebody who's changing economy, not somebody who's a revolution. She's just a basketball player. Now, I'm not saying that as a result, she becomes an activist and does more, but the bottom line is merchant of death for a basketball player. to me, that's a bit weighty to release for that. I'll let you go first, Tim, because what do you think about this, man?
Well, I think it was a calculated risk, and arguments can be made on both sides that the cost for the release was too substantial for us to have paid, as well as the other side of that same coin is that it was worth it. I think that Brittany Griner has a level of intersectionality that made her more, I think, than just a basketball player, given the current state of politics that we have that are both above the surface as well as the subterranean region that also goes on. And what I mean by that is that you have a progressive democratic regime that's in office right now that is sympathetic to the LGBTQ plus community. She was a poster child for that particular community. She's a woman that's married to a woman. And so people, can free moral agents do what you want to do. If that's what, that's how you want to get down. I don't subscribe to that, but others do. And I think the Biden administration has a number of individuals that are sympathetic to that and walk in that lifestyle within the office and administration, similar to the Obama administration. So who knows what kind of closed door conversations and pressure he was facing from that particular demographic. There's also been some talk that, the African-American woman is the least protected person in the earth, going back to some quotes that, have been attributed to Malcolm X. She's also a Black woman. So this is another knock against, hey, y'all just gonna let her rot in that jail over there because she's a Black woman, because she's LGBTQ. The other thing is that she's a two-time Olympic gold medal champion. And so they talk about, the heroes of your land, serving your country, so to speak. She's done that. And it seemed as if the punishment that she was receiving was a bit more severe than what her crime was over there. So I think that the Biden administration felt a lot of pressure internally from these intersectionality roles and avenues that went unspoken in the public. Then you add to that, I think the public opinion and outcry was that, hey, go free our American citizen over the other gentleman who was a Marine guy, Whalen, I think his last name was, but it comes to find out that he was dishonorably discharged from the military. So he has a whole lot of baggage as well. And when President Trump was offered to make an exchange for him prior to, I think, this situation, he said, miss me with that because the guy was, kind of dirty. So that's that piece of it. As it relates to what type of consequence the world and the United States may face with this arms dealer, this notorious guy, this quote unquote merchant of death, again, it's kind of two sides to the same coin. On the one side, he sounds like a terrible guy. Doesn't sound like he's anybody to mess with. He should probably be in jail, as evidenced by him being held by us for 25 years for crimes against humanity. But the other side of that same coin is for every despot, for every kingpin, for every killer, for every mercenary, for every merchant of death that we can name from any other country or ethnicity, nobody stands as deadly to humanity as the United States when we look at the track record and resume. The United States is the only country, the only one to ever use a nuclear weapon. So in terms of going nuclear, using the worst possible way to destroy your behind, we're the only country that ever did it, and we did it twice. So for us to call anybody the merchant of death, there ain't no mercenary than us when it comes to killing. Can't nobody outdo the United States. And if my man gets too out of hand, best believe that he will go the way of Muammar Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein, and Osama bin Laden. We can get you and handle you, so don't get too big for your britches, player. Don't forget that. So I think that with that being said, all things considered, the Biden administration might have been in a no-win situation. Whoever they would have exchanged, whatever they would have given up, would have faced some scrutiny, and rightfully so. And I think that this was a situation where sometimes, as the Bible says, you count up the cost and, you roll the dice. The other piece is you live with the consequences of what you do. And I think that the Biden administration made a calculated risk and said that, hey, man, risk versus reward. If we do have to take it on the chin because of this, it will have been worth it for us to save face in some public, the court of public opinion to some, although we got some detractors. And if it does seem like it's getting out of hand and my man is getting too big for his britches, not only will we go after him and as only we can, but we'll also maybe even try to get some of our allies to go after him as well, since he seems to have had a search and destroy mission for other countries around the world also. But in terms of killing folks, America can't get outdone in killing people. So if he does get too big for his britches, I have no doubt at all that America will go on a search and destroy mission and handle him and deal with whatever else needs to be done as a consequence to that.
Man, that's very well said, Tim. And I just would, my opinion on it, my humble opinion on it, is this was straight politics. That's all this was. This was politics. And I think the only reason why Brittany Griner was over there for that reason is because she was a high profile American hero. She was a gold medalist that represented our women's Olympic team and won 2 times. So she was a big name. She was a star, and grabbing someone like her was something that they could use to get their guy out. One of the reasons I think Putin gave up Brittany Griner for the Merchant of Death and not Whelan was because he wanted to make the president look bad politically. He wanted the president of the United States and the citizens of the United States to say, look at y'all president. He values someone from the community that Brittany Griner is from the race that Brittany Griner is from the sex that Brittany Griner is from, more than a European American male. And I think that's one of the reasons why he didn't give us the other gentleman too. He wanted to make a statement politically to the people of the United States that, listen here, European American males, you guys don't have the same status y'all had before in your own country, and it's evident by this female LBGT Black woman being more valuable to your president and your leader than a white male. I think it's strictly politics, period. And on the other hand, I also want to say that as unfair as Brittany Griner's captivity was and her sentence was, it's people in the United States, in every state in the United States, that are in jail for marijuana possession and got way more years than that for absolutely something that's legal in 25 of the 50 states. So once again, the United States being pretty hypocritical about Putin and what he did, because we do it every day in this country, all day long, in almost all the states in the United States. So it's some hypocrisy in us saying, oh, that's the worst thing in the world that happened to Brittany Griner. And granted, it is bad, but it's a whole lot of people that our own government do that to the second or third power on a regular basis. So this right here to me was strictly politics. This was a way for them to try to get people against Biden and try to get some of the European Americans against Biden by saying that you don't have the same value that you had, because look, he gave up one of the most notorious people in the world for LGBT Black female. And I think that's what it was. That's how I see it. Brittany Griner was in the wrong place at the wrong time. She's a victim.
And you know, both of y'all have made some great points. I think all three of us have. And I love that there's 3 different perspectives here. None of us are wrong. Probably all of us are right. It's probably some of everything we've been saying, but you know, we'll see. Let me close with this because we don't have much time. Luke chapter 12, verses 2 and 3 says, but there is nothing so carefully concealed that it will not be revealed, nor so hidden that it will not be made known. For that reason, whatever you have done in or said in the dark will be heard and seen in the light. And whatever you have whispered behind closed doors will be proclaimed on the housetops. I said that because the district attorney general is suing Washington Commanders owner Dan Snyder and the NFL for deceiving residents. Daniel Snyder is in trouble for how he's been operating his business, and the NFL has known it, and they have colluded to help or conspired to help conceal it. So they knew what he was doing, but they were hiding it from the public. And so that's why, if you remember, Snyder said, hey, listen, you don't want none of me. Because if I go down, I'm taking a whole bunch of people with me. He made that statement. And now we see why he said it, because NFL, you knew and you helped him. Part of what the lawsuit is saying that that the NFL purposely hid this information. They purposely done it. And so, you know, we're gonna get into this really. We'll get into this really next Tuesday. But this has to be talked about, because the fact that all this stuff has been hidden, the fact that a lot of stuff from the NFL is starting to be revealed, the No Fun League, it's also the No Fair League is what you want to call it. You know, that's what NFL stands for. Some stuff is coming out about them that they've been dirty for a long time. And now through social media and through people who have enough resources that if you come after me, I have enough resources, I have enough clout to come back at you, and you don't like what I know about you. And so, like I said, we're gonna get into this because this is gonna be a deep conversation for next Tuesday. So y'all need to tune in. Next Tuesday, same bat time, same bat channel. Again, for the #1 faith-based sports talk show in the entire world.